This is a terrible game. Anyone who's thinking of buying this who isn't a Star Wars fan, don't do it. It's absolutely shit. I've got to say, and I suppose I can go into the reasons why I think it's terrible. I'm just a casual gamer. I don't really sort of play shoot 'em ups too much, and I certainly don't play online that much because I just like running around as myself, as a character in a game, following a story and shooting things and whatever. But in this game, here are some things that really bug me about it. You can't customize your character. You can't customize the weapons. There's only 4 major maps, and they're pretty friggin' dull, I've got to say. They're pretty, but they're dull. You can't snap into cover. You can't duck behind something and use it as cover when there are a million people trying to shoot you constantly. There are a million people trying to shoot you constantly, and all you can do is run around and try and find places in the map where you can sort of maybe get a better vantage point than most. But then the characters come around behind you anyway, so you're constantly outgunned. Especially for someone like me. I'm not a noob, but I'm certainly not great when it comes to the shooter games. I'd much rather find a little position somewhere quietly and sort of snipe people off and then move when I need to and play it how I want to play it. And surely games these days should be about how the player wants to play it, not forcing them to play a specific one specific way of playing. And okay, another problem, major problem I have with this is that it costs $60, which is like, well, $65 or whatever, which I thought, that's actually pretty reasonable. They obviously want people to buy the game, so they're not overcharging for it, I thought. But in order to play any of the stuff that's actually fun, and I can tell you now the single-player stuff isn't fun, it's repetitive and dull. And yes, you get to play as some of the characters from the game, but you don't, when you're not playing as them, you don't get to be anything other than what they tell you you have to be. And there are 2 loadouts for your weapons. That's all you can choose. You don't even get to, you get to scroll through a series of pretty ordinary, like, laser guns. I can't even think what they're called. And that's about it. That's all you get to do is kind of pick which weapon you choose and which loadout of just 3 not particularly that useful items. The amount of times I've tried to friggin' kill an ATST and I'm shooting it, and it just won't friggin' explode. So you throw some bombs at it. The bombs are like a meter away from it, and they don't work. So it's just incredibly frustrating and kind of like just lame. It's really lame. When you do get to do vehicle things, which is on the online stuff, which I'll get into, it's just you get to like have a go on a speeder bike. You get to have a go on a thing, and I got to say, speeder bikes are fun. But really, for me, starting out was really hard to get my head around it. But the actual spaceships that you get to pilot are slow and they're boring. And you just go around and you go up, you come back, you shoot at things. You fly up, you come around again, you shoot at things. You go off, you come back and you shoot at things. And I'm sure that's probably what it's actually like in war. But it's friggin' boring as a game. Like, all you're doing is kind of that same thing, just like runs. You go out, you come back, you do some runs, and you try and shoot things before they get to a goal. It's just boring. You can't explore. You can't go further past these limited small maps. And while those maps are pretty, I suppose, the game feels like it was made 10, 20 years ago. It's really boring and uncustomizable, and I just think it's a complete waste of money, even at $62. But not just that. If you want to play the stuff that's actually fun, you have to go online and buy a PlayStation Plus account thing, which apparently I would have known if I'd ever gone online and played games online as multiplayer things before. Apparently that's the norm. I think it sucks. I think it's fucking terrible, but apparently it's the norm, and people are okay with it. I mean, I would have also known that if I had taken a magnifying glass with me to read this line here. I mean, nowhere on the package does it say that you need those things. Nowhere obvious, anyway. No, it just makes it out like you're going to have fun playing these characters. You're going to fly around in a TIE fighter. You know, my assumption is that these things here are part of the core game. They're not. This is the stuff that you can do online. This, you cannot fly this. You can't, unless you're online. Now, I can show, look, this is the magnifying glass I should have taken with me. This is in reverse, but that line there tells you that you need the PlayStation account and all of that kind of stuff, PlayStation Plus, in order to play it. Now, I'm pretty disgusted because I assume, and I assumed wrongly in this case, it is an assumption, that most games are going to come with something you can play that isn't necessarily online, because not everybody's going to want to get on. Not everyone can afford to get on. It's $30, $28 for 3 months. So if I wanted to play for a year of this game with my friends, which I'm supposing most people probably will with the expansion packs, etc., that would cost what? For $120 a year on top of the game price. So that'd be $180 just to play the parts of the game that don't suck. Now, that's fucking terrible. EA, honestly, you can suck my fucking balls, because how the fuck dare you? How dare you treat gamers like this? How dare you treat Star Wars fans like this by assuming that just because somebody's a fan of something that they're willing to tolerate shit from you? Well, I'm not, and I'm fucking disappointed in myself that we bought this without at least looking at the online reviews, because if I had, I wouldn't have bought it. And do you know what? EA doesn't give a flying fuck, because they've got my money now. They don't care. They're just thinking, woohoo, we're raking in hundreds of millions of dollars from gullible Star Wars fans. That's how I feel when I play this game, that I have been completely conned into believing that this was going to be a fun experience, and that yes, to some degree it's pretty. Whoever did the design work and all of that kind of stuff, it's pretty. But it's only pretty in so much as that you're running around playing a shit game in something that's pretty. It's vacuous. It doesn't actually mean anything if something's pretty, because when it comes down to it, I expect games to be pretty these days. That's a part of the process. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars making it. They're expecting me to spend like up to $100 to buy the thing. I expect it to be good. If it's not good, well, why am I spending money on it? And I tell you what, I will think twice before I buy anything from EA. I mean, I don't know what Lucasfilm and DICE, what their roles were in it. But certainly the marketing will be coming down to EA, and I got to say, I'm pretty pissed off about it all. I will be thinking seriously before I ever buy anything from them again. And I would recommend that everybody out there who isn't a die-hard Star Wars fan, I'm a fan, but I'm not like, I don't own merchandise and I'm not sort of that obsessed with it. I'm not that fazed by the fact that I'm Darth Vader or that I'm Luke Skywalker, that I can run around doing those things. Pretending to be them. And by the way, considering they're friggin' Jedis, their powers are limited to 3 things. I mean, everybody's powers are like 3 things. Oh, I've got electrical powers. I'm the all-powerful Emperor, but I can only zap someone who's 10 meters away. It's just lame. It's so lame. Oh, I'm Darth Vader, but I can only slice somebody when they're right beside me. Well, he can shoot his thing out, I suppose, but only 3 things? Like, come on, you should have a set of things you can choose. The jetpacks that you have to kind of get you out of a problem, they really only take you about 50 meters in the game anyway. You can't really use them particularly well tactically, because you go off in 50 meters in any direction. There's nowhere to frickin' hide anyway. And people are shooting you while you're in the air. It's ridiculous. I just found it incredibly frustrating, incredibly tiresome, and just a complete rip-off. So I wouldn't be recommending it to anyone other than the die-hard Star Wars fans out there. And I think even they are going to be pretty bored pretty quickly. I've seen many reviews like this online and, post buying it because I was excited. You get excited. You think, oh, this will be great. And I got to say, as a bit of a warning, don't buy something just because you think it's going to be great, because generally the E3 trailers and the information they release beforehand is designed specifically to get you excited about buying something before you've even seen it. And we all know the story of Watch Dogs. We all know, Assassin's Creed. I'm so bored with all of it now, because none of it seems to be about developing interesting new storytelling techniques or interesting new experiences for gamers. It's just about producing a big, boring blockbuster, just like Hollywood. Just pump some money into the promotion of it, sucker people into thinking the graphics are going to be better than they're going to be, sucker them into thinking the gameplay is going to be better than it's going to be, and get them to buy their money before all of the negative reviews come out. And that's pretty much the way it's working at the moment, and that's why I don't have much respect for it at the moment. And I gotta say, PlayStation 4 has been one of the most disappointing purchases of my life. I've played some fun games on it for sure, but PlayStation 3 had got to a point where the games, by the end of it, were actually really friggin' good anyway. And it's been, however many years now since the release of PlayStation 4, and the quality just of the things on it just hasn't gone up. Certainly not as much as they said it was going to. They promised the world that Watch Dogs was going to be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, that the new Assassin's Creed were going to be stunning. And they're not. They're just not. They're okay. Like, they're all okay, but they show you in the previews with these beams of light and particles and every single wrinkle and drips of water coming off of people's noses, and it all looks beautiful and hit all the atmosphere. And they say, this is what it's going to look like in game. And then you see another thing released a bit later, and those drips suddenly aren't there, and those beams of light suddenly aren't there, and everything suddenly looks a bit flatter. And then they release the game, and the game is like 3 pixels of your favourite character running around in a shitty environment. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm getting to a point where I just don't care anymore. I'm not going to buy anything until I've seen all of the reviews online now, and even then I probably won't. The next game I wanted to buy was definitely, well, obviously Tomb Raider looks okay. The story in that's usually pretty good, and the graphics are okay. I thought the last one was a bit overhyped, to be honest. I mean, she's called Tomb Raider, not run around in a limited sandbox raider, and not raid anything raider. I mean, the tombs were a bit of an afterthought, and I liked it because of the story. I liked it mainly because of the acting, and the direction, and in general I thought it was pretty cool. It was a great story. But this new one, it looks good, but even that I can't get invested in the excitement of it coming out, because I'm just expecting to be disappointed. And that seems to be my default setting when it comes to certainly PlayStation and most games these days. I just expect to be disappointed. Especially considering I don't play all sorts of games, so there are plenty of games out there by all accounts are amazing, but I just don't particularly enjoy them. I don't really like, I'm sure multiplayer would be fun if you had your friends and you were playing something that you really dug. But in general, I just find literally running around and just constantly shooting a laser boring. It's just boring. It's like I wouldn't even go to laser tag to do it. So why would I do it in a video game? You literally have to run around in Star Wars all the time to avoid being shot. And just momentarily, you can't even hide behind something. You have to kind of just avoid. You have to get behind a tree. And if there's a thing there, you got to keep doing this. It's kind of embarrassing. It's like, you feel like an idiot. You feel like if this was a battlefield, I would be dead in 2 seconds. Like, it's stupid. You can't set booby traps. You've got a couple of hand grenades, but you can't set booby traps. What kind of game has it that you can't set a few like secret little bombs here and there to at least thin out the herd of the like 20 superior in skill people that are coming to kill you? It's just completely crazy. The only thing I enjoyed in the whole game was the bit where you're in the ice sort of hangar, and I can't even remember what it's called. That's how boring it is. You're in the ice hangar, and there's like one spot where you can go where basically if you stay there and they come to you, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's the only thing that I found fun. All the rest was just running around panicking and getting killed every 5 seconds because there are people coming from every direction. It's just kind of stupid, man. It's not what I consider fun, and so I don't enjoy all types of games, and so there are plenty out there which I've probably missed out on quality-wise that are amazing and all that. But in general, as a kind of casual gamer, I've got to say it's been pretty lackluster for a whole year now. There really has not been one thing that's made me go, wow, I really want this. I suppose the crew was the last thing, but even that, when I saw the graphics of the crew, the gameplay's fun, but when I saw the graphics of it, I just thought, God, this is so bad, considering what I thought it was going to be. You know, you get the entirety of America, in a very sort of shrinky-dink version of it. Yes, it's pretty exciting, and it's cool and all that, but it's, it's obviously not America. It's a very stylized, small version of America. So, I mean, all these things that I'm stupid for having believed, yes, but at the same time, I just feel it's deceptive. And certainly in this case, I think it's almost to the point where the fact that you need to spend an extra $30 at least for 3-month membership to play this game, the fact that isn't advertised here, I think, personally, is false advertising. The fact that I can't return a game, which I think is terrible and a rip-off, simply because I've taken the package off and played the game, I think that's pretty terrible, actually, because and probably actually illegal according to Australian consumer law, because there's nothing in there that says that something has to be in sellable condition in order for it to be returned if it doesn't perform up to the standard of reasonable expectation. And I think that a game that cannot be played by a single player for any more than a few hours should fall into that category of not living up to what is expected of it. I think it's fucking terrible, man, and so terrible. I've just done a 15-minute rant of how bad I think it is, and how much I think EA is ripping off people, and how much they're patronising Star Wars fans. So even if you are a Star Wars fan, you've got to really think about whether or not you want to be ripped off by EA to play an ordinary game just so that you can swish around a lightsaber for 5 minutes. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's a rip-off. I don't think anybody should support this crap, but if you do, enjoy it. I don't see how you could enjoy it unless you friggin' love Star Wars to death. But even then, I wouldn't recommend it. Okay, that's my first review of a game ever, and it was a pretty big one and a pretty bad one. But there you go. I mean, come on, guys. All of the people involved in the gaming industry certainly need to friggin' step up their game, because if I, who love games and the first way I really got into games again, and my experience of gaming is very limited, very limited. I had a VIC-20 and played Mole Attack on that when I was a teenager, and I just went, fuck this, I have to program games and buy these stupid cartridges. Computers suck. And then I didn't really touch gaming again until PlayStation 3. I mean, that's how much of a missed in the gaming world. And the reason why I fell in love with PlayStation 3 was Uncharted. We bought the PlayStation 3 and that game came with it. And that game was just, all of the Uncharted series has been so friggin' amazing. And my thought was, wow, this is how good games are now. I cannot believe how good they are. I completely loved it. I loved the story. I loved the performances. I loved the look of it. I loved everything about it. And it completely convinced me that the gaming was the way of the future, that I no longer needed to focus on anything other than the fact that these games were incredible and I loved them. The adventure of it all, the excitement, the thrill of every single part of it, I was just totally hooked. But I got to say, since then, it's been a steady decline into kind of ennui about it all, and disappointment, really. And that's pretty bad. You know, it's kind of, I assumed that was where games were at and things were going to get better. But for like 6 months after that, nothing compared. Then suddenly the graphics got good again and a new one came out and all this kind of stuff. But to me, the gaming industry just seems like hype at the moment. It just seems like a lot of hype and not a huge amount of substance. Certainly the big ones. I'm not saying this about the small independent gaming, the people who are making smaller games, because they seem really cool and all that kind of stuff. And you can't lump them in with the massive industry. It's like saying someone who made a short film is the same as someone who's made a terrible Hollywood film. It's not the case, but these are major blockbusters, and I just don't think they're advancing in a way that they should. I think they're just resting on their laurels and they're producing the same old shit, and it's boring. It's time for a change. It's time for new and exciting things. So if anyone out there knows any games that don't completely suck, and that look good and play good, that aren't about me having to spend excessive amounts of more money on top of the pretty high price for the game to begin with, well, let me know, because as I said, I'm not that experienced when it comes to games, but from my personal experience, it's not floating my boat. All right, love you guys. See you later.